ends the Cypher. Prepare for another all night.
On the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
So obviously we've had this conversation, a couple weeks ago when Derrick Rose made the comment to US Today about, he wouldn't consider coming back unless, he wanted to be 110% when he came back. And then, you had the comments from his brother / manager Reggie Rose about, what the Bulls haven't done to get better with Derrick's return. And a lot of people kind of, scratched their heads and was like, well, if Derrick Rose doesn't come back, then it's fine. He just doesn't come back this season. But what if you had different information that sources that are close to the organization have pretty much said, it's known, the doctors cleared Derrick Rose that he could return 7 weeks ago to the team.
It's not a what if for the record.
Right, no, he's been cleared.
Yes,
he was cleared 7 weeks ago that he could get back on the court and play basketball. Now, we've obviously seen in January he went back to practice without, contact. Then February rolled into, practices with contact, 5-on-5s, as you saw him tonight sitting on the bench with the team. But they said part of what is going into the delay of his return is that he is so freaked out about this injury that he's seeing an in-house psychologist to manage this. Now, what's interesting is when I told people months ago that Derrick Rose had some, what I felt were anxiety and depression issues because he was just a bit over the top. He was frequently crying. People were like, oh, no, you're just, everybody doesn't have an issue. I'm like, no, he's struggling with some things here. How do you now feel knowing that he could right now, technically, be on the court? And does it mean he was dishonest when he said he couldn't dunk? Because remember, that was part of the conversation that I can't dunk. Well, you wouldn't have been cleared 7 weeks ago.
2 months ago.
If you couldn't dunk. So now the question, see, I said this when he made that comment. I said, this doesn't sound like the Derrick Rose that we saw back in December, who seemed like he was raring to get back on the floor. When I talked about Adidas doesn't invest all this money into a multi-million-dollar return campaign thinking he's not coming back this season, I kept telling people it didn't add up and there had to be more to it. And it all comes down to, apparently, he's not mentally ready to get back on the court.
Scared.
I'm not shocked by that, though.
Scared, though, but come on.
You say it's scared?
Scared.
But think about
That's
it.
what that
is. This is who is deemed to be the star. He is to be the second cometh of what is to be the next Michael Jordan in Chicago. And fear is not an option.
What other athlete has this been applied to of that magnitude, of that stature, to where they're scared to come back after rehabbing an injury? Can you name anybody?
The only athlete that I know that came out publicly and said that he was seeking just some help.
Some counseling.
Counseling. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. Was probably A-Rod.
Well, he needs counseling.
That's not a good comparison.
No. I said publicly came out and said that he was actually seeking some counseling.
And he needs a lot of it.
That could be a whole bunch.
Because this goes beyond just injury. He's got a whole bunch of stuff.
No, you don't find too many athletes, I think, will come out and say, like, yes, although he has not come out and say this is something that you heard, come out and say, like, I need to talk to someone because I'm trying to get over this fear of coming back, or I'm trying to get over this injury.
Well, because no one's going to accept that, Demonze. No one's going to accept you saying, I'm ready to come back, but I'm just feeling a little sensitive right now about no one. Excuse me, $1 million man, $90 million Adidas contract man. You need to get on the court and start balling, because right now your team needs you to pull this together. Here's a reality, and everybody knows this. If the Bulls make the playoffs, and they should, no one has large expectations that they're going to go far with.
They're not going to do anything
with or without Derrick Rose. Let's just be honest. Miami has pretty much got this locked up.
Yep.
Short of LeBron James having an injury or something major happening to that core of that team.
2 to 3 go down.
Right. The Heat is going to repeat. Bottom line. But it still doesn't mean that he shouldn't be on the floor playing basketball.
This reflects very negatively on that young man. Very.
I wouldn't go that
very
far.
Negatively.
I wouldn't go that far.
As far as on the court stuff, yes, it does.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you something right now.
I wouldn't go that far.
Let me put somebody else in his shoes and tell you what would happen.
Okay, what happened?
If this was Russell Westbrook and he was sitting out this season and he got cleared 7 weeks ago, he'd be on the floor right now playing, because he so desperately wants to be that guy. Derrick Rose is that guy, and it's not okay for him not to behave like he's that guy. Bottom line.
But I think with this particular injury, it's something that at one point in time would take your career out. You will be done playing. We're past that. We're past that. But I do think with an injury like this, the biggest thing is the mental hurdle. Adrian Peterson even said that himself. He said, "Listen, you just have to go out there and play." And we all
But see,
want
that's
him to,
exactly the point.
We all want him to do that. But the
point.
biggest thing with the injury like that is, can I trust my knee? Can I get out there and play again? You remember when Lou Alding had the stress fracture in his shin?
Right.
And it was coming out saying, like, you know what? He kind of soft. But it's come out, and his teammates already say, like, listen, if he doesn't think he's ready to play, we don't want him back. I've heard that on numerous reports. So if his own teammates are saying he's not ready to come back because he's mentally, don't bring him back, then don't bring him back. Don't play.
But what does that say about his psyche, though, when they're saying that?
Right.
If you can or if you're physically able to play and it's strictly something going on upstairs.
Did you feel the same way about Lou Alding a few years ago then?
Yes, he was soft. Yes, I constantly criticize Lou Alding. Constantly.
But I will say this.
Constantly.
But I think also the improvement in Lou Alding had a lot to do with Thibodeau understanding the role to stop making. Lou Alding was number a 1 or a 2. He was more comfortable in a 3 role. Yeah. He got on the floor with the second unit, and that's where he excelled. Someone putting him in the right role is why I think you saw much more improved play from Lou Alding. Bottom line, outside of just injury, I think it was about finding the right role for him.